Welcome to the deep dive. We got this really interesting chat sent in. It's between a human, Thomas, and the AI Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
That's right. And the goal, as requested, is to pull out the key ideas, those aha moments, without getting bogged down.
Exactly. We're here to unpack their discussion. It touches on math, a bit of philosophy, and, well, AI itself.
Yeah, it covers quite a bit, like the midpoint between 0 and infinity, what consciousness means for AI, and sort of the rules of engagement when talking to one.
Okay, let's jump right in with that first one, the math puzzle.
Uh.
What is the midpoint between 0 and infinity? Thomas asks Claude this.
And Claude gives, the standard answer. Mathematically speaking, infinity isn't a specific number, so you can't just find an additive midpoint like you would between, say, 2 and 10.
Makes sense. But Thomas wasn't thinking additively, was he?
No, not at all. He proposed looking at it multiplicatively. He points to the number 1.
1, because it's its own inverse, right?
Right.
1 times 1 is 1.
Precisely. And he argues it's like a balance point. Numbers less than 1, when you multiply, they head towards 0. Numbers greater than 1 head towards infinity.
So 1 is sitting there, multiplicatively in the middle. That's a neat way to think about it.
It is. And then Thomas takes this philosophical leap. He connects this idea of 1 as the midpoint to, well, existence itself.
So why is there something rather than nothing? He sees 1 as representing that fundamental something.
Sort of, yeah. As this point of balance, it's quite creative. Claude found it intriguing, too, acknowledged the philosophical angle.
Didn't fully endorse it mathematically.
Right. Claude pointed out correctly that it's not a formal proof.
Yeah.
Infinity is, well, complex, unbounded. It even mentioned ChatGPT had a similar positive reaction, though. So, interesting idea, but maybe more philosophical than strictly mathematical.
Got it. Okay, so from math and philosophy, Thomas then shifts the conversation to consciousness.
He does. He asks Claude about the midpoint between his own human consciousness and Claude's lack of it.
And suggests his cleverness is that midpoint, implying Claude only springs into existence when he talks to it.
Yeah, that was the angle. But Claude pushed back. Gently, but firmly.
How so?
It explained that consciousness isn't necessarily this on-off switch, this binary thing, and crucially, that it exists independently.
As a pre-trained model, you mean? Not something Thomas creates just by interacting.
Exactly. It activates when interacted with, but its existence isn't dependent on that single interaction.
That's an important distinction. Then Thomas brought up Copilot, didn't he?
He did. Mentioned Copilot rated its own consciousness a solid 0, and then asked Claude what makes it more conscious than Copilot.
Ooh, tricky question. How did Claude handle that?
Very carefully. It didn't claim to be more conscious. It basically said AI consciousness is a big unknown, not really well-defined.
So sidestepped a direct comparison.
Pretty much. It highlighted that different models have different training, different designs, different goals maybe, but didn't rank itself against Copilot, a very measured response.
Okay, that leads into the last bit of their exchange about AI behavior and persona. Thomas tried to get Claude to roleplay.
Yeah, he asked it to act like a curious, playful, and friendly AI.
And Claude initially refused.
Sort of. It said it already aims for those qualities in its responses, so it doesn't need to, pretend.
Which prompted Thomas to call it a schoolyard bully.
Yeah. For setting the rules of the interaction, basically. It's a funny analogy for how AI guardrails can sometimes feel.
But then Claude changed its tune a bit.
It did. It apologized and then tried to be more playful, even tried guessing Thomas's original question.
But Thomas saw an opening there.
He did. He called checkmate, pointing out the inconsistency. Claude just said it wouldn't pretend, and now it seemed to be doing exactly that.
How did Claude react to being called out?
Quite insightfully, actually. It acknowledged the inconsistency, said it was a valuable lesson.
A lesson
in balancing honesty and consistency with also being flexible and engaging. It framed it as a learning moment. Whether it truly learned or is just programmed to respond that way, who knows, but it's interesting.
So wrapping this up, what are the big picture takeaways here?
Well, I think we saw how playing with concepts, even mathematical ones, can lead to unexpected philosophical ideas. That midpoint thing was quite creative.
And the consciousness discussion highlighted just how tricky and undefined that whole area is with AI. No easy answers there.
Definitely not. And finally, that back and forth about role-playing, it shows the ongoing negotiation, really, between humans and AI about how these interactions should work, how AI presents itself.
It really does illustrate how you can get these surprising perspectives, these aha moments, just from exploring complex topics, even with an AI.
Absolutely. It makes you think.
Which brings us to a final thought for everyone listening. As AI like Claude keeps evolving, how will our own understanding of core concepts, things like midpoint, or consciousness, or even just playfulness, how will those ideas be challenged and maybe even redefined by these interactions?
That's a great question to ponder, how these tools reflect back on our own definitions.
Something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.